You get to be a family. And that's why I said I worked for the government for 40-some years off and on. Terry Dingus. I was born January the 23rd of 1950. I was raised in Kingsport, Tennessee. My father was Ray Dingus. Mother was Lily Dingus. They were both born and raised in a coal mining community over in a little town called Dant, Virginia. Migrated to Tennessee, which was 45 miles away. I had two older brothers. It was sometimes interesting being the youngest one. But my oldest brother, Ray, he went into the Air Force until he got killed in a car accident back in 1990, January of 90. Next brother was Bobby. He got drafted a year after me, ended up going to Korea as an MP. I just graduated in 1969 from high school. I was working for a local truck lines called Mason-Dixon Truck Lines. It was one of the largest privately owned trucking industry east of the Mississippi. Already had my draft notice, knew I was going to get drafted. People don't remember it, that was when the lottery system was working. Back in that time, 68, 69 time frame, anywhere from 65 on, everybody knew that if you were going to get drafted, you had two choices. Join and see if you didn't have to go to Vietnam, or wait until you got drafted. Kids in the high school, once I turned 18, we had to register for the draft. There was no ands, ifs, or buts. And you knew once that lottery number came out, you knew you were going to eventually get it. And just living with it, because I graduated in May of '69, but knowing that we were going to get drafted and everything else, you're thinking, oh man, when's it coming? And you don't put your life on hold or anything, you have to go on. Eventually you'll get that notice, and it's the same as the kids that I was in high school with. Even the kids I went to base, initially 9 of us were drafted on that date out of Kingsport. And you just learn to live with it. It was a way of life back then. We didn't pay any attention to it. And the kids that didn't want to get drafted, if your lottery number didn't come up, you didn't worry about it. You went off to college, you did what you wanted to do. I didn't even start college until I got out of the Army. There's no need, because we knew it was not going to happen. And if you number didn't come up, life went on, and there was a lot of kids that never got drafted. They just kept avoiding the lottery, and it was just the number is what it amounted to. So you learn to live with it. It's the best way I could put it. You didn't let it bother you and everything. My wife, I was friends with her older brother. We went to high school together, and I met Cynthia at her birthday party. We got married, and she was 16, with the consent of her mother. And back then, my mother even had to sign for me. I was 20. She came to Germany, 16 years old, got on an airplane, flew to Germany, never been on a plane in her entire life, and hardly ever been out of the state of Tennessee. And she made it all the way to Munich, Germany, never got lost.
On October 1st of 1971, their daughter Cindy was born. Then, 6 years later, on March 4th of 1976, they gave birth to their son, Alan.
Now, if we survive it till the 27th of September, we'll be married 49 years. So we're still together. Initially, I went to basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. From there, I went to advanced individual training in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, as a combat engineer, better known now as sappers, but graduated from that in 3 months, and then ended up going to Germany. I was assigned to a artillery unit, 155 self-propelled artillery unit. 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red 1. Spent about 17 months in Germany, then came back to the United States, got out of the Army, and joined the reserves for a few years. I spent 32 years in the Army. I give you an idea of the first 2 years. And was in the reserves for approximately 9 years, and went on what's called an Army Guard and Reserve, AGR tour.
When soldiers are on an AGR tour, they have volunteered to go on active duty providing full-time support to the National Guard for the purpose of organizing, administering, recruiting, instructing, or training.
After that, when I was with the reserve unit as a TPU soldier, we did training at Fort Bragg, Camp Shelby, Mississippi, and we went to Panama one year. Wonderful trip right before I transferred up here. It was wonderful. We built roads. I think it was about 2.5 miles of roads. Primitive, but they were, passable. And we built a bridge, timber trestle bridge, for a local community across a small river. And we did that over, I think it was 6 weeks that they rotated troops in and out of Panama. After that, I got signed up here to Rockford, Illinois. Of all places, come to Rockford, Illinois. Was here for 3 years at the local reserve center here in town. I was on active duty as a unit trainer. Took them to Honduras. Had a wonderful trip down there. Again, we built roads. And this give these kids in this community an idea of how it was to operate heavy equipment in the mountains, because Honduras is definitely not flat, and especially when you're looking at Illinois. We did not finish the road. We were one of 12 units that came in there for a 2-week period. So, it's a continuous operation. After that, I got assigned to a unit in Decorah, Iowa. Spent 6.5 years at that unit. Same thing as a unit trainer. And for the last 5 years that I was with that unit, I went to Honduras about every January and would spend about 3 months in Honduras over the winter months. And they would rotate soldiers in every 2 weeks. And every 2 weeks we would build a one-room schoolhouse made out of cinder block. It was not what we're used to as a schoolhouse. We could take a piece of plywood, 3/4-inch plywood, and make a desk out of it. One piece of plywood. And when we left there, we left them enough paint brushes to paint the school. The school was finished. It was cinder block and had a tin roof on it. But that's what we did for 2 weeks. Then the troops would come in and out, and I was just a permanent party there. The only thing they had when they got there was a poured slab, concrete slab, and that was it. After that, I came back to Rockford for about 9 months and then got assigned to Chief Army Reserve in the Engineer Division in Washington, D.C. I went from the company level to the top of the food chain, if you want to put it like that. That was as high as you could go as the OCAR. I was only enlisted in individual in a unit of colonels, lieutenant colonels, majors. I think there was one captain, and then me as a master sergeant assigned to that group. And when I was with the Corps, I ran had to do with recruiting. We did recruiting for the Corps of Engineers because they had TPU positions, and we would work to fill those with people that were out and looking to get into a unit where they didn't have to go every weekend. TPU soldiers.
Being part of a troop program unit or a TPU in the Army Reserve is more like a part-time job that enables soldiers to keep their civilian careers while they continue to train near home and serve their country.
We did that for 2.5 years. Finally retired October the 1st of 2001. I was on the retirement rolls when 9/11 hit.
An incredible plane crash into the World Trade Center here at the lower tip of Manhattan.
I was in transition, and you don't know what to do. You don't know whether you look for a job or you wait to see if they're going to call you back on active duty once 9/11 hit. And even after that, I was only 51. So they could still get me for 9 more years. So that's always there. You think, well, they could call me back. Retired and went back to work for the government. Seemed like I worked for the government from May of 1970 till January the 12th, I think it was, of this year, when I finally retired from everything. So it was 40-some years that I worked on and off for the government, whether it's Army or civilian life. You do miss it no matter what, though, I will say that. You miss the people. May not miss the job, and I've said that more than once. I don't miss the job, I miss the people. You get to be a family, but a bunch of us get together every Thursday. There's about 6 or 7 of us from here in Rockford. We still get together every Thursday and sit around and see who tells the biggest lie. And I worked 3 days before I hit the 69th birthday, and I retired. A soldier, doesn't matter whether he's 90 years old or whether he's 18 years old. We're all a family. Whether you're in the Navy, it doesn't matter. Army, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard. We're all the same. It's one big family. One gets hurt, we all get hurt. And as the Army says, one bleed, we all bleed. I would encourage anybody that wanted to go into service to go in with an open mind and not with a chip on your shoulder. And, go in, do the best you can do, whether you go for 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, or 20 years. Give it 100%.
Being in vet doc for the second year has really just opened my eyes. I learned how to be a leader and how to help others as far as the whole documentary thing goes, and just sure there were a lot of things that I needed to learn more myself, but with the help of Nina Mustangi, I was able to fulfill that. And I know this year has been different because of the whole shutdown, unfortunately. However, we made it. I got through it. I finished the doc, and it's better than what I expected it to be. Having the honor to do my grandfather's documentary has really opened my eyes to family history, and I am so glad that I was able to preserve his experiences and his life, because then I can go back later and just watch it again and then have all these memories still there. I can just have it, and it'll always be that little piece of him that I have and will always have. The class has just become a second family, and the laughs we've shared, the tears, all that will always be there for me, and I really couldn't ask for a better way to spend my vet doc career.